make you more sleepy.
I make my nose. I forgot to bring it clean.
I went to say happy birthday.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Appreciate everybody coming tonight. We'll start with the invocation from Councilman Jeff Gross.
Let's pray. Father, we pause to thank you for this beautiful day. I thank you for the people that are in this room, specifically the representatives on this council. I ask now that as we go through tonight's agenda, give us sharp minds, humble hearts as we do the business of the city. In Christ's name I pray, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, Jeff. Welcome everyone tonight. Got a lot to do. Got some really exciting things kicking the meeting off here, but before we do that, we'll do the mundane approval of the minutes from September 21st.
Would you mind doing a roll call?
Yes, I was gonna do, we've got 3 here. I don't believe,
Have 4.
is there anyone
Five.
online? Council member? I see Department Head Brian Davidson on. There's one other caller. Are you a council member?
I know Counselor Frush was going to try to phone in. I don't know if that could be him or not. It could be.
All right, well, he's not responding. Counselor Frush, have you called in? All right.
Ask Brian to test the phone to see.
And Counselor Dobbins, have you called in? All right. Brian, can you unmute and just we'll test to make sure that we're okay here? You might be having dessert. Brian Davidson? Well, at this point, I've got, we do have a quorum, all
I'll
present.
test them and see if they're on.
Pardon me? Is that, that's Brian?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Is that Brian?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a quorum. I will remind you that it will take 4 votes to take action on anything we consider tonight. And again, there are 5 of 7 council members present. Councilor Dobbins is excused and Councilor Frush is excused from in person. I don't know if they're going to try and call in or not. So, all right. So we will proceed with the approval of the minutes. Again, let the minutes reflect that there are 5 members present. So from the September 21st meeting, those minutes have been presented. Are there any additions, corrections, any action to be taken on those minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay. Motion's been made.
I'll second that.
All right, second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, great. So, let's move into our exciting moment of business here tonight. September 23rd, the Office of the Lieutenant Governor had an award ceremony, I believe it was a virtual ceremony, to honor the 2020 Golden Hoosier Award recipients. And there were 24 recipients who were honored for a lifetime of community service and commitment to serving others that were honored on that special occasion. The Golden Hoosier Award is the highest honor bestowed upon senior citizens by the state of Indiana. I'm sorry, I had to say that. That was part of the description, so Tim, I've known you a long time, and But what I'd like to do, there were 24 Golden Hoosier Award winners in the state, and we had 3 of them right here in Kosciuszko County. And I was just gratified. Well, it didn't surprise me, but I wanted them to come tonight. I wanted them to be honored. And what I think what I'd like to do is if the 3 winners can come and just kind of spread out up front here, then I'm going to read the information that the Lieutenant Governor's office provided about the award. So there's Tim Meyer from Warsaw, Linda Ozier from Warsaw, and Robert Woolman from Winona Lake. So, Linda, you come down here just a little bit, about right there. Looks to be a good separation. And Bob, does that look fair? And I'm going to read. I'll start with just the order that I was giving these. So I'm going to start with Tim on the left side. Tim again, Warsaw, Kosciuszko County resident, nominated by Michelle Goebel.
They don't need the glare.
Financial expertise and business prowess by dedicated volunteer Tim Meyer enabled the Warsaw community to grow and prosper. In his 15-year service to the Kosciuszko Chamber of Commerce, he served as treasurer on the board of directors, providing sound financial advice. As a lead mentor for the Kosciuszko chapter of SCORE, he worked with business owners to provide them with business counseling at no charge. Meyer was instrumental in the development of the Ivy Tech Orthopedic and Advanced Manufacturing Training Center. He went beyond his advisory role and helped lead efforts to make this vision a reality. Students now learn skills in an on-the-job environment that will prepare them for valuable opportunities in Kosciuszko County. He has benefited other organizations, including Kosciuszko Home Care and Hospice, Kosciuszko County YMCA, United Way of Kosciuszko County, Warsaw Redevelopment Commission, and Kosciuszko Economic Development Corporation.
And Pike Lake Association.
And Pike Lake Association. He is also deeply involved in Sacred Heart Catholic Church and the Knights of Columbus. Meyer and his wife Marcia recognized the need in their community for many more options for women in a crisis pregnancy. They opened their home to young women, which launched their co-founding of the Heartline Pregnancy Center over 40 years ago. Golden Hoosier Award winner, Tim Meyer. Next, Linda Ozier from Warsaw was nominated by Alicia Oliver. Linda Ozier, founder of Isaiah 11 Ministry, takes a fresh approach to counseling by offering therapy sessions on a farm. Although Ozier is trained in equine-assisted psychotherapy, she also engages a variety of farm animals as co-therapists in addition to horses. This may include donkeys, goats, pigs, rabbits, ducks, chickens, dogs, and cats, many of which have been rescued and cared for by her efforts. For a decade, this active Christian counseling center has benefited many, particularly with the Tuesday night barn group, where all ages gather for life skills, training, prayer, animal care, and sharing a meal together. She's an advocate for her clients and generously provides donated food and clothing and referrals to other community resources. Payment is not an issue with Ozier. No one is turned away, although some have offered to perform work on the farm in return for the counseling. Reflecting on the effectiveness observed with families and individuals, Meyer shared, "People come to Linda because she has such a different approach and genuinely cares for people and animals." Golden Hoosier Award winner number 2 from Kosciuszko County, Linda Ozier. And Robert Woolman from Winona Lake was nominated by Deb Wright. Dedicated over 50 years as a volunteer firefighter for the Winona Lake Fire Department, Robert Woolman is a recognized leader within the department and the local community. At a time when he couldn't be as active on the front lines, he managed the station during calls and assisted the phones to coordinate relief for firefighters and victims. Even now, at 83 years old, he still attends meetings and assists whenever possible. His daughter recalled times when he had to miss family events due to fire activities. However, she stated, he gave of himself to his community and made us proud. For over a decade, Williman has also continued to serve his church's community closet to distribute personal and household supplies to those in need. As a 27-year member of the Warsaw Community High School Athletic Booster Club, he served a variety of roles and enjoyed interacting with the kids and seeing them grow over the years. He even volunteered over a decade as a youth softball coach. He was often visible in the community, from selling slushies at the county fair for the Winona Lake Lions Club to, of course, fighting fires. Golden Hoosier Award winner number 3 from Kosciuszko County, Robert Williman. I would ask each of you to say something, but you might turn on me, so. But I would certainly offer the opportunity. Bob, do you have anything to add? No. Okay, all right. Well, thank you. It's obviously well-deserved from what we read here. Linda, any comments?
I'm greatly appreciative, and I'm hoping that the ministry that I founded and run will get some more publicity just through this, that there'll be more people who will turn to us for when they have needs for counseling or animal rescue.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's the Isaiah 11 ministry, correct? Very good. Tim, I know you'll say a few words.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it's a great honor to be recognized in this way. We obviously don't volunteer our services for rewards and recognition, but it's nice to be complimented in this way. Appreciate it very much. Thank you very much. I want to thank the Chamber for nominating me. Unlike my golf buddies who thought I was the only one nominated.
That's great.
But it's very nice and very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your families for coming tonight. We certainly appreciate the time you spent. This was such an honor to have 3 of you from our county and representing our county and the great things we do up here. So I'd love it if you'd scooch a little closer, and then we'll try and fill in behind you for a picture. Jeff and Josh, come up. Let's just see if we can get a picture with a little bit of social distancing here. That looks pretty good. All right. Can you get us in, Sloaney?
There we go. 1, 2, 3.
We're smiling.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you all. Oh, I do.
I'm just in my.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. You're all welcome to stay, but we wouldn't blame you if you decided to go. Go out and have dinner. Thanks, Tim. All right. So that's fun.
thank you again.
Thank you.
All right.
Bob and I worked together.
Thank you very much.
We built the Owens down here
Oh,
when it was remodeled in 1968. Wow.
Sloaney, there's if you Google Indiana Golden Hoosier Awards, they've got a web page that has all this information on there. Okay, perfect. All right.
He was a master carpenter. Yeah,
All right.
probably
So
still is.
we've got a fair amount of work to do tonight, so we're going to start out. Later tonight, we're going to just introduce a stormwater utility rate adjustment ordinance. We won't be taking any action tonight, but what we're going to do is hear from Ryan Workman, who is our stormwater coordinator, talk a little bit about the needs and just kind of give us an overview of where the stormwater department utility is right now and why the need for an adjustment. And then at the end, the last item on the agenda, we'll look at the ordinance and just to present it, just to introduce it. So Ryan, if you want to start, we'd be glad to hear your presentation.
Well, I'm thinking with this, overall, as Mayor Plummer said, we have been working for the past year in assessing how stormwater utility is financially. And when it comes to at least our revenue requirements as a utility, as well as the increased capital projects that we keep having to archive until we can actually pay for those, as well as the increasing costs and stress that we have on our own utility and infrastructure. So yes, again, earlier this year, we were tasked to see the impact in which stormwater utility had, as well as where we are with our annual revenues and the annual requirements for our revenues. And we found a few interesting things. So first we did an annual study with our, inside our own utility, and the biggest find that we had was that we were actually, through two different departments, we're being subsidized around like $600,000 to $700,000 in operations costs. So us alone, we're not generating enough money to actually sustain our utility. So we're going to go on without this. Yeah, essentially, as Laura Thomas said, we started off looking into that on ourselves, and then we worked with two engineering firms, but essentially the new proposed rate is to increase the rates to provide adequate revenue stream currently to meet current operations and capital plan needs with subsidization. And then moving forward, because we see that we just addressed this, and the last time that we looked at this was around 5 years ago, 5-6 years ago, that we're starting to fall behind. So adding to an extra step to what we did before last time is to incrementally increase the rates to sustain adequate revenue stream and transition to a revenue stream necessary to become a self-supported utility, as well as still tapping into or utilizing the cumulative capital development funds. So most of our larger scale projects that we're doing for both quantity, so stormwater quantity, you can associate that with flood or drainage management, as well as our quality programs or our quality projects, which are more based off of water quality, recreational improvements, as well as holistically just our water quality with our city itself, being the City of Lakes. And there's usually an educational component there as well, since we're required to do that through programs. But essentially, the utility rate is needed to remain compliant to regulatory requirements, continue our operations and maintenance, continue to put out those large-scale capital improvement projects. So currently, right now, we're doing relining a section of storm line that's just south of Center Lake, and that costs around $400,000. Currently, right now, we are being subsidized at this year $500,000 through cumulative capital development funds. And then we also have two appropriations in our budgets that allow us to put aside for quantity and quality projects. But overall, when it comes to our budget, around 70% are going towards projects themselves and not administrative costs. But also moving forward there, mentioning the regulatory requirements, the state is making some changes to our permit program, which we're under. And so we're going to be incurred a little bit, it's going to be inflated in cost for our administrative costs within the next 2 years. So that's another thing that we need to look forward to as well. But aside from capital improvement projects, we also have master plans we're going to need to update. standard operating procedures that we did not have, being the history of stormwater utility, that we really weren't a utility until 2013 and then didn't generate revenue until 14 and 15, but we were in the program since 2003. We kind of partitioned off the responsibilities, so we don't really have all the foundational items that we do need. But as well as this, vehicles and equipment. So last year we purchased a 5 years lease to own street sweeper, and that alone was $500,000. And those just keep increasing. I had a conversation with Brian and just talking about the increase in the capital expenses for vac trucks. And he can recollect where it used to be around $300,000, and then they just continue to increase more and more, especially with the way that we lease to own to 5 years and then try to rotate that out within 10. So these is necessary to at least look for the proposed stormwater rate that we have worked through this whole past year into giving you guys a recommendation. So as I mentioned before, we started with our internally with our utility, and then we started working with Christopher Burke as a rate consultant, as well as Baker Tilly. And from this, we were able to ascertain the proposed stormwater rates that you see in front of you. It's the same process in which, or the same foundational process that we have, or structure for our last rate. We are just, one, bringing up to meet the current operation needs for this next year. And then two, within the next 4 years, increasing from 2022 to 2025, moving up to where we can, one, get to a self-supported utility while utilizing the CCD funds, and then also that allows us to displace monies that both wastewater utility are using for us, as well as public works, which is again around 600,000 plus, which is a huge chunk. So again, I wish I could at least utilize that. I can't tame that beast right there, but overall, with our large capital projects that we've had for the past year, we've at least, with even just a few of them to list on top when it comes to quality projects, we had the Eisenhower Basin. Eisenhower Basin overall was around $400,000 or $700,000 in completion. There was 3 phases. I actually came into that before it was, before it actually had, or after it actually had started. And through that whole process, it is a large basin that's within a few of our development homes, or just a cul-de-sac, allowing to better manage the drainage for that whole area, as well as further northeast to our Kelly Park Pond, which we're going to be addressing this upcoming year, and get it revitalized and hopefully fishable again, as a few people have mentioned to me. It used to be like that around less than 30 years ago. So, but on top of that as well, we've done around 1,700 linear feet of shoreline stabilization since my time here, since 2016, and that amounts to around $400,000 that we've done. And again, we only touch the shorelines that we are actually in ownership of. So usually we partner with the Parks and Recreation for those shorelines. A few of the shorelines that we have done is predominantly Pike Lake. Starting from the campgrounds all the way to the beachfront. And we've also done a few on the Lucerne Park side. Yeah, actually go to the slide up real quick. Go to this one, because this should give a good idea of what our things are for our projects. And then click on it and it should start the video. So this is going to give you a good snapshot of the capital projects that we have done. This is Eisenhower Basin, or at least a section of it. There are 3 areas that we did to help with overall drainage. And this is actually a pilot project that we would like to use for other development, larger scale developments for local housing additions in the area. Byron Farm Greenway Enhancement Project, we partnered with KCH as well as a lot of others. That land right there is actually not ours until it actually reaches to the west side of that. And this kind of shows the distinction between the hospital and the wetlands. And here's the Pike Lake Campground. You can see that the riparian area or the shoreline has been stabilize naturally, as well as still giving fishing access to those who would like to. Lucerne Park, this was actually finished by Teresa before I came in, and then we actually did shoreline stabilization on the outside, or the sides of that. This was done last year by Lincoln Elementary. It's kind of a pilot project with a curb cutting to see the drainage for stormwater. And then here are two large projects that we have going on next year, which will be amounting to around $600,000 to $700,000, just these two projects. So the Kelly Park Pond, again, I am not a native here, but I've been told that you guys used to be able to fish from it. And over time, it had a lot of nutrients and drainage going to it, where it lost its depth, as well as had a high oxygen level, or it would extract the oxygen levels, making it too low or hypoxic. So I've only seen a few frogs in there with great herons, but and then also we're going to be finishing up Pike Lake. So the larger reaches from the cabins that are south of the campgrounds, all the way down to the channel and around that to the other side of the south central side of the other parking areas. But yes, again, $3 million have been utilized for projects like that within the past 5 years. And we have about $5.7 million identified or estimated, but that's not including around 23 projects from other partners that we've collaborated with that have identified some, we just haven't estimated yet. So, yeah, overall we have a lot of expenses, and that's just the gist of all, basically, of this whole presentation, and why we do need to, again, increase the rates to meet the current operations. And so then eventually, too, the extra step, the increments of increasing that, one, it's not going to be stressing too much on both the residential as well as the commercial ratepayer, but then also we're going to be able to meet those needs and then displace those or return those dollars back to both wastewater as well as public works. Yep, and then here's kind of a distinction between the quantity and quality, which I had mentioned. These are past or completed projects. So you can see again, East Market Storm and Eisenhower Basin, which I alluded to earlier, $700,000. Going all the way to other projects. Now these are only showing the, I would say the larger scale. We usually have surprise projects throughout the year, which can cost you around $15,000 to $25,000 depending on. And then also, depending on what we want to do for the next year, you also have to have design costs, which you can think of around $30,000, or if you want to just budget out $50,000 itself too. And then just the list of identified projects here, and this is a section of the designs, 60% to 70% designs of our Pike Lake project that we have going on next year. But again, we're only touching on these two, and these are mostly quality and quantity. And then to add that video you saw, quantity projects are usually underground, so can't really show all that work. We can do some camera work, but honestly it's not as alluring as our other projects that we have. But again, $5.7 million have been identified for projects. And then to get back to the needs I've already stated, due to the current demands and operations, our total revenue needs to increase. Administration costs are going to inflate in the next 5 years, and that's alluding to the regulatory changes coming from the state level, forced from the federal level for our program. And then, yep. And overall, the justification for that is NPDES compliance, program act stability, so the ability to create these master plans, standard operating procedures, continue our capital master plan. That's our probably biggest one that we need to have stability for. Instead of having it fluctuating, we want to continue to have a consistent high dollar mark so we can meet those needs, so that we can plan out not just like 2 to 3 to 5 years, but 5 to 10 years for our larger scale projects, so that we can look at City of Warsaw holistically when it comes to our water and drainage. Our improvements for our infrastructure are always going to be needed. Those are the surprise projects, as well as we haven't videotaped all of our infrastructure, and storm is usually the ones that is the most scary to see. Improvements to recreation, improvements to quality of life, and those are predominantly going to be this quality of life or water quality projects. That's all I got for you, aside from any questions, but thank you, Jeremy.
All right, thank you, Ryan. We'll get into this towards the end of the day. We'll look at the ordinance itself, and I know, Mike, you were involved, and of course, Jerry and Cindy, who are not here tonight, were involved in that committee as well, so you'll have a little bit of thought tonight, but we don't want to get into too much detail. We just want to kind of set the stage for next meeting where we'll consider this ordinance. So we'll get to that here shortly. But Ryan, thank you for your help, and certainly hope you can stick around and answer questions regarding the ordinance as well. Lynn, anything on the third quarter investment report?
Yeah, we have a couple new investments. They're number 4 and 5 at the bottom of the page on the list. $1 million from the general fund, which was the most newest investment, and we got a rate of 0.50. And then $1 million from Northern Tip, that was earlier this month, or in September, I'm sorry, and it was $1 million as well for 0.45%.
All right.
So the rates are dropping, unfortunately.
Still dropping.
Yep.
But Lynn, I appreciate you bringing the council up to speed on this. Baker Tilly helps manage these investments. They ladder the investments. They stagger them so that they try and take advantage of that technique to get as good a rates as are possible. And as you can see right now, we're about as low as we've ever been. So, all right. Well, if there's no questions on the investments, let's move on to unfinished business. Tonight, we'll have our second reading of the appropriations and tax rates, ordinance 2020-1001. At the last meeting, if you remember, we held a public hearing and you all approved unanimously the budget. Tonight, we'll ask that you consider it on second reading. We do have until the end of this month to get this done, so if you don't do it tonight, you know, you've got another meeting to do it. But remember that the budget appropriations that we're considering here that we'll approve at some point can certainly be lowered or eliminated up through the deadline to submit our response, which is typically mid to late December. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I've already begun soliciting some departments, and we'll, after this is approved, we'll sit down and I will certainly go into all the departments and look at some line one cuts. We know obviously we're going to have some significant line one cuts from our health insurance premiums that did not increase as we had budgeted for. So that's typically a source of cuts for this budget. We're going to look at our reserves. You know, you all passed a reserve policy a couple of years ago, and part of that was to keep our reserves at minimum of 15%. Working with the clerk treasurer's office, we feel like in this day and age with the uncertainty of revenue over the next couple of years, we'd certainly like to keep our reserves up and around 20%. So we're shooting for 20% reserves this year to again see us through some next couple of years of uncertainty. So I'm sure we've got work to do. Some of the budgets are a little bit high, and we're going to need to go in and look at some areas to cut. I did talk to Cindy today a little bit about the non-for-profits, and she's pretty close to having that information. I think there's one more that's being considered by that committee. But by and large, we've got a cap on that, and as we get closer to the middle of December, we can certainly work through that information. We don't need that tonight. What's budgeted was the amount, I think it was a 1.5% of the previous year's budget.
Of the 2020 general fund budget.
General fund budget. That was the cap we had put on the non-for-profit. So that's what we're budgeted for right now. Again, like everything else, it's budgeted high, and we're going to go in and start. Got a lot of work to do. So again, tonight is kind of the formalization of the budget process. Nothing can be raised after tonight, and it can only be lowered and will be lowered. And this is the typical fashion for a lot of you that have been around. You know how this works. Josh, I know this is your first cycle, and hopefully you'll look at this and go, wow, I hope it doesn't end up like this, and I can assure you it won't. That's why we're here, to get something down and then to go to work on it and look at what our appropriations realistically are going to be for next year, and also look at our revenues and kind of wait a little bit longer to see how the revenue projections are coming. We certainly, those are revised periodically. Lynn's already got a couple on the local option income tax and may get another one, who knows. But it's important to keep that in mind and to look at that. So with that being said, I will open it up for your discussion on second reading. Again, you all passed on first reading after the public hearing. So tonight, I'd ask for your consideration on second reading, and the floor is yours, Council. This is your appropriation budget.
Well, I made the rounds. I talked to almost every department head in the city. Cindy and I did, and I came away impressed with what I heard from everybody. I think everyone is under no illusion that this is going to be a little different year. So other than that, I really don't have anything to add, other than I think we just move forward.
Well, Mike, I appreciate the time you and Cindy spent to go around. I know a lot of you others visited the other departments and certainly have your ideas and thoughts, but I appreciate your consideration of doing that. I'll remind you that we do have I believe it's a 4.2% growth factor. In other words, last year's levy can be increased 4.2% for inflation. So that is built into this budget as well, as far as where our maximum levy will end up. But you don't see the maximum levy on here. All you see is a budget adoption and a levy right now with a $1.38 tax rate that's way over the levy. So we got, like I said, we got work to do.
I think in my conversations with department heads, they've all been very frugal, and I appreciate all our departments working together. They definitely help each other out and find ways to save the city money by the different skills and talents that are within the departments and the equipment available, things they're able to do that we can now do in-house. I'm very impressed that by the size of our community, that we do so many things like that on our own and don't have to go out and get those things done. So I feel like the departments have really cut it back to the bare bones while not sacrificing the maintenance and the upkeep that we need to keep our city going strong. We can't let things deteriorate, so we may not be able to do a lot of building, a lot of changing, but we are taking care of what we have. And I think that those are important points to look at, that sometimes you have to spend money in order to avoid a larger bill later. And I think that our department heads have really looked at the things that they're responsible for and figured out where they do need to put money in to keep us going.
I appreciate that, Diane, and you make great points about our department heads. You know, you all, council members, along with our department heads, spent some time together at the beginning of the year when we went through our organizational review, and this budget reflects some big changes, and we'll hear about one tonight that we have to do to keep up with the growth in our community. And that's the other part of this budget, that we've got to be as lean as we can and mean as we can, but we've got to provide the services that are required, and we've got to make some changes in how we do things to try and update and be more efficient. And you're exactly right. The department heads understand that. They've worked together well amongst the other departments. They know that sometimes the wish list isn't is just that. And, you know, this year we will certainly get real. But thank you for that comment about the department heads.
You know,
Mike?
Mayor, I think you hit the nail right on the head, because you have to have personnel, and you have to pay them properly, and you have to have the tools to do the job. So the only place you can try to cut back or save money is to become more efficient.
Well, we were fortunate last year with our increase in our assessed value. It spread out the burden, the tax burden, to a much larger group, and it was obviously significant growth that we've planned for and planned, and it's happened. We've accomplished what we need to accomplish, but that's created larger footprint in our community that requires more services, and we have to be able to keep up with that. So, well said, Mike. I appreciate that. So, any other comments? Like I said, we'll be taking a look at significant cuts as we go along. This is, again, just the first step in the process, but it is a required step by the state, and we'd like to get that done in a timely fashion so we can, again, respond to our revenue projections as they continue to roll in, and get through our departments and make those necessary cuts. So,
I'll make a motion that we pass 2020-1001 on second reading.
okay, motion's been made by Diane. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Wilhite. Any further discussion or questions? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, let the record show it passed 5-0 on second reading. Okay, so we will now go down through our salary ordinances that we looked at and actually read at the last meeting, and all were approved. I'll remind you that the general salary ordinance, the police salary ordinance, the fire salary ordinance are all required to be approved by November 2nd. So we have, again, tonight and the next meeting in October, I believe it's 19th. The final number 5 is our elected official salary ordinance, and that does not have to be approved until December 31st, 2020. But again, all 4 of these you all have approved. And I want to consider these individually, but, you know, I'd ask for your consideration tonight. I know Jennifer's here. If you've got any comments or questions on these salary ordinances, certainly she's worked hard with the salary committee. And again, this represents I think we've talked a 1%, minimum 1% increase, well, a 1% increase in 26 pays instead of 27 pays last year, which helps out. So.
And keeping our insurance.
Keeping the insurance out of pocket for the, premium contribution for the employees, it will remain the same. Thank you, Diane. So, any comments, Jennifer?
No, you all said yes.
So let's consider ordinance 2020-0802, which is the second reading of the general salary ordinance, 2021 salary ordinance.
I move that we adopt ordinance 2020-0802.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Diane. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Let the minutes reflect it passed on second reading 5-0. Item number 3 is again basically the same request, basically the same changes that were discussed in the first, the general salary ordinance. This would be ordinance 2020-0803. This would be the second reading of the police 2021 salary ordinance, again with the 1% increase, no change in the insurance premium contribution, and 26 pays. Anything, Jennifer, that have,
No, we didn't make any changes other than.
is there a motion to consider ordinance 2020-0803?
I move to approve ordinance 2020-0803.
All right. Seconded by Councilman Finch, and initial ordinance by Councilman Gross. All right, questions? Comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Jeff?
They just did, Jeff.
Or, I'm sorry, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, let the minutes reflect passed 5-0. A lot of details in here tonight, you know. All right, let's go on to item number 4, ordinance 2020-0804. This is the second reading of the fire 2021 salary ordinance. Again, same changes as the previous two. Questions or comments? Jennifer, any comments on the fire?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to consider ordinance 2020-0804?
I would make such a motion.
Okay, motion made by Councilman Clondaris. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Quantz. Any questions, comments?
I'd like to thank the Wage Committee that has worked with HR, Jennifer. It's a job that takes a while, and although the wages aren't the largest motivator for our employees, it is a motivator, and I'm very thankful that we're able to be able to do something like this for the employees.
All right, any other comments? Thank you, Jack. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Let the minutes reflect the 2020-0804 passed 5-0. We'll go on to ordinance 2020-0805. This is the second reading of the elected officials salary ordinance 2021. It again reflects a 1% increase. No change in contribution for insurance benefit. And sorry, guys, there's not 26 pays. There's only 12.
Yeah, they only get 12 anyway.
So, questions? And again, this doesn't need to be approved on second reading tonight. You do have till the end of the year. Certainly your pleasure.
You know, Mayor, I might just suggest we do, and I'm going to leave it up to everybody. Tonight, we are 5. I know fall break is coming up. Is that in 2 weeks? Yeah, I won't be here, and you may not be here. And with the situation with coronavirus, since we do have a quorum, we might be wise to move ahead. But I'll leave that up to others.
Okay, it's certainly up to you all. So is that a motion?
Yeah, is that a motion?
Well, no, it was not a motion. It was just discussion that I think it's worth considering to move ahead. If anybody else has any other input or wants to make a motion, that's fine. It's just a consideration to think about. Normally, we wait till the very end, but 2020 has been a crazy, weird year, and it's not over. So who knows what can happen?
Councilor Gross, I think you should give your speech about how we come up with the elected official.
I agree. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. You don't have any concerns acting as president. I don't.
Josh, hand him the microphone for the benefit of the Boxcast, the stream.
It's not on. I didn't turn it on, I forgot.
Grab that one.
Yeah, just approach the microphone.
Well, I mean, I don't need to give a speech here, but like Jack said, the days just working through wages, salaries, and benefits are far better than what they were 21 years ago. And I greatly appreciate the council, as well as HR, looking my direction. I've always believed that we should stay true to what we are doing for the rest of the employees and what we are putting on the backs of the taxpayer. And so I'm in support of this ordinance as well. I'm one with Mike. I have no problem acting because Cindy's been involved. Jerry, we're all, I think you've been in agreement, at least on the first reading. I would just want to make sure as president that you're comfortable as well. But I have no problem making the motion to pass this tonight.
Yes, I'm comfortable with it. I believe that your points of discussion or speech or whatever you want to call it that you've made in the past about councils and elected officials getting no more, no less. The no more obviously makes sense to the public. The no less, sometimes they might question, but that has to do with keeping in pace with other towns, making it no more, no less than what our employees are getting. That may sound like a cop-out, but we're looking at people that come up behind us, I think, more than anything. I have been told that in the past there was a clerk treasurer who did not want the raise over a period of time, and that created some problems for the next clerk treasurer. Maybe she was independently wealthy. Maybe she could do it without having to worry about having enough money to make ends meet. But that made it more difficult for people following her. And I don't think we want to get into that sort of a problem. I think most of the people here, myself included, when I started this job, I was told I had to fill out a W-2, and I'm like, what? You remember that? You remember that, don't you? Because I wasn't planning on
I
getting
did the
paid.
same thing.
So, it's not to become rich that we do this. And I want to thank those who serve as councilmen and councilwomen.
Related to your comments, like I've said in the past, I feel like as a legislative body, we can look at the taxpayers, we can look at the employees serving the city of Warsaw, and we can say that we didn't treat ourselves any differently. It's a straight shot to the community. What we felt was best on all fronts for our employees, we did exactly the same thing. I think the danger is when you start, no, I'm going to do this, no, we're going to do that, especially as elected officials, and being you guys have heard the speech again, but I just appreciate we've been able to do it for countless years now, and I just believe it's a easier night of sleep for me, knowing that we stayed true to everybody else that we looked at, same thing.
So is that a second, Jack?
That would be a second if there's a first.
Yeah, I'll move to approve ordinance 2020-0805.
And I'll second it.
All right. Any further comments, questions?
Great discussion. I'm glad we had it.
Yeah, thank you for all your comments. Jack, that was a pretty good speech. Seriously.
And I didn't write it out.
All right.
When they're from the heart, they're the best.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So the ordinance 2020-0805 on second reading, elected officials 2021 salary passes.
That's
All
a
right.
first. as long as I've been here, we've never done it that early.
So Jennifer, before we get started, I wanted to mention a few things. This next, we're into new business now, and here we just approved the salary ordinance, and we're coming back with an amendment on the salary ordinance, and I wanted to explain that. I've had a chance to talk to a couple of you, but our organizational and operational assessment this year that we sat down and all looked at, again, how we want to move forward in the city and try and get more efficient. And, we spent a lot of time, and we're going to spend a little bit more time, I think coming up, we'll sit down and go through with Baker Tilly the details of this review. But our budget can't wait. Some of these recommendations that were made were so important that I'm proposing that we move ahead with one such of these reorganizational steps. One of the significant things that has occurred with obviously with all the growth we've had in the community, and we talked about that a little earlier, Baker Tilly looks at our community and compares us against 5 or 6 other peer communities, similar sized communities in Indiana, a few neighboring communities, and our community is looking at about a 10.6 population increase in the last since 2010. And that's an estimate. We're certainly not done with the census. In fact, they're going through the end of this month, a wild year of census. But anyway, they're looking at a significant 10.6% increase in our population. And the rest of those peer cities are averaging anywhere from 1.6 to about 5. So we've clearly been on a trajectory of growth. And obviously, we talked a little bit about the importance of the assessed value, spreading that tax burden out to a broader area, dropping the tax rate. We saw that last year. But with growth also comes the demand for services, the larger footprint, and we're going to see department-wide this issue. Police, fire, street department, sewer, and building and plan, looking at the growth, the zoning issues, permitting. We're just behind, and I think the building and plan is the one that's showing the most need. Baker Tilly observed basically that the growth has the building and plan and other departments pretty much at capacity, which is now going to start to affect their productivity. When they get beyond a point where they can handle it, it's going to start going down, and our services are going to suffer. And we've seen some of that already. We've got to take action. So the recommendation from Baker Tilly was to restructure the building and plan department and split the economic development and redevelopment activities out into their own department. So there are many other specific recommendations for building and plan, but this is the one that I wanted to focus on tonight. I wanted to look at making our salary more competitive as we try and attract someone to come into this new department and run this department at a competitive wage. So I know, Mike, at the last meeting you asked me why I had put that number in the salary ordinance for that community development director. And I said I'd gone through the AIM salary study, but to be honest with you, it was the number of and the breadth of the range was so wide, there weren't that many samples, and I tried to look at communities our side and throw a number in there. And as I've looked at this and decided that we can't kick the can and wait, this is something we have to do. I'm asking that we amend the salary ordinance to create a larger increase, to create a more competitive wage that would be consistent with what's being offered both in our region and statewide, but is reflective of the growth that we have enjoyed in requiring that we continue to support our community through that growth. That growth is creating the need for more redevelopment, It's not just forging ahead and growing more, it's now deciding what we need to do with that growth that we've enjoyed this last 10 years. So that position of Community Development Director includes economic development, redevelopment, housing. These are things that are separate from the day-to-day activities of Building and Plan Department, which looks more at zoning and zoning opportunities, as well as building and code violations and that type of thing. And there are some improvements that are being considered. We're looking at potentially another GIS coordinator and potentially someone else to help get an automated permitting system going. But at this point tonight, I want to focus on making that development director's salary, community development director's salary, a little bit more competitive. So I'm asking that we consider a maximum biweekly wage of $3,192.31, which comes out to $83,000 a year. And that's up from the $74,500 that was originally in the salary ordinance.
As Mayor Tomlin was talking about a couple weeks ago when we were here, I can't believe, I don't remember if it was Jack or, I can't remember this. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, Mike, I remember.
Was it you? Okay. And we said, well, we're just kind of taking it, we're just kind of throwing it out there. Well, the last couple of weeks, as Mayor Tomlin was talking about, we've had a chance to really look at the position and creating and the responsibilities. Some of the wage that we projected or we estimated from the last salary ordinance was a coordinator, not necessarily maybe the director that's really going to take the bull by the horns, if you will, and really shape that up. So I am comfortable, as Joe was talking about, that we're going to be looking pretty good. Even if we go to areas such as in Fort Wayne or Angola, Mishawaka, that's more of an accurate wage for a community development director. So.
Something I wanted to mention, I did mention housing. We're coming off the heels of a housing plan developed with the foundation in the county. There's been the development of a anchor housing fund with Zimmer Biomet and Indiana Community Housing Development Authority. We've got $2 million to start housing projects in our community. And certainly what was identified in that housing study is that we are behind. We need workforce housing. And that's as big a part, those types of projects are as big a part of community development as anything else. And we need somebody that's ready to go and somebody that understands the importance of that as economic development. It's just all one and the same. So, that being said, I'd open it up for your discussion. I felt like it was important enough to bring it to the council tonight. I'd ask for you to consider it on first reading. Then again, we'll consider it on second reading down the road. I don't want to rush this through, but I think we're at a juncture with the Building and Plan Department. We need to make these moves. We've had outside eyes looking at this problem, and they kind of told us what we knew. And I think we need to make a move.
So I need some convincing, because this would make this person the third highest paid in the city, paid more than you are, paid more than Jeremy, who I think is doing the job now. We're paying a lot to Kosciuszko Economic Development Corporation. So I need some convincing that this high of a number is where we need to go. And
Well-
what is this person going to be doing that's different than the organizations that we're already paying to do some of this? Are we going to not pay, for instance, Kosciuszko Economic Development money as much in order to have this position, or I just need some help here?
So I think it's important to understand that what we look for in this community is return on investment. when it comes to economic development projects. And I think to get someone who can do the job, I think we looked earlier this year at a revolving loan fund, and we decided to keep that revolving loan fund within the city because we felt like that revolving loan fund needed, those decisions needed to come from you all. That's the type of economic development that needs to occur in redevelopment, considerations that need to occur within the city. These housing projects, we're competing basically with other communities in our county for some of these dollars. The importance of these being homegrown solutions, if you will, are critical, very important. What we've learned is that we've probably underfunded economic development over the years I've been involved. And what we've seen is that KEDCO works very diligently from an economic development standpoint, from an attraction standpoint. They work with Indiana Economic Development Corporation. But when it comes down to our community making decisions, and when it comes down to our city making decisions, we need economic development director that we've got now in our community. And as we split this off, I'll answer part of your question and say that there might be an individual in our organization that probably would aspire to do that job. So I hope that makes sense.
Okay.
I think what we're paying KEDCO right now, we've seen some tremendous benefits from that. Again, look at the growth that we've had in the last 10 years. Look at the projects that we've got on the table. We're beyond capacity. And like I said, we've got to not only try and continue to develop new projects, we've got to develop projects that are the result of the projects we've already been successful with.
I'm not begrudging what we spend, but I'm just putting it in perspective with all of our other hardworking employees, trying to justify that high of an amount. Because we're not a Fort Wayne, we don't have the tax base that Mishawaka has. We're not in that same league as far as money coming in from taxpayers. So I want to be sure we're spending taxpayers' money wisely.
I think related to that, Diane, I don't want, the layman speaking here, but with some experience. You said efficient and effective, Mike, as we talked about salaries and that kind of thing. As a taxpayer, you just said spending our money wisely. You think of $1 in taxes. As a taxpayer, I want to make sure that the city of Warsaw is spending that dollar wisely to provide services. Usually you just think of the dollar. Now here's Jeff the layman, what I have learned over especially the past 10, 15 years. And Mayor, you said we've been lacking. I think I have seen in your administration, along with the council membership that we currently have, we have done a much better job when it comes to community, when it comes to development. Back to that dollar. That department up there, in a position like this, can bring in lots more dollars. That's what I've learned. And we have seen it. You invest, okay, public money, and then the return on that investment. That takes me to how critical it is to have someone that knows what they're doing, they know this community, because every dollar they're dealing with, planning, redevelopment, I think of the grant and aid system that we have, all the money that's out there, every dollar we use, it better be spent wisely. And you've got to have somebody who knows how to use it and advise the many stakeholders. I think of the mayor, I think of us, I think of all the different other organizations, private, public, that this individual would deal with. We've got to have somebody that can do that. And again, what I've seen in the past 10 years, again, Mayor, we've really seen the investment from the public, boy, the private sector. Back to Jeff, the taxpayer, and Clark Street, and back to people that are trying to live, work, and play. The big players, they've benefited as well. And so I think that is critical, that we are looking this direction to not only get, but to keep these kind of people to benefit all of us. Rambling there, but that's been my thinking. And we've had these discussions before as a board, and I've talked to them, you know, we've been here before, we've been on the plan commission,
Right.
how critical it is that we have people that know how to spend our dollars wisely, public, so we get that private benefit.
So I think the position definitely is justified. I'm just struggling with the dollar amount.
Think of it maybe like this.
Okay.
When one of the first things that, I think we were still over in the old city hall, and one of the first things that came to this council when I was still new was we were going to hire our own engineer.
Mhm.
And that was a big step.
Yeah.
And it was only a part-time job. And the mayor had found an engineer to come in and help us. Well, now,
What would we do without
look
him?
how much money that engineer has saved the taxpayers, and he has a high salary. He's the highest paid employee in the city.
Mhm.
But that's really nothing compared to how much money he's probably saved us, 10 times what we pay him. And I think the same could be said for this new position, that, you know, we're experiencing 10.6% growth. That's no accident. That's planned. That's planning.
It's true.
And as we continue to grow, we're going to have even more planning to do and more, you know, thinking out, you know, 4, 5, 10 years. I think it's a great move. I think it's a strategic move. I think it'll pay dividends in spades. As we continue to move forward, we'll never look back and think, why didn't we do this before? Just like the engineer.
Diane, I think your question is certainly valid and a great question. What I've learned in 9 years as mayor and the 12 before, and being involved in watching other communities and their economic development, one of the first things I did when I was elected mayor, I went down to Marion. Wayne Siebold was mayor down there, and he had, I said, Wayne, who does your economic development? He looked at me, he goes, it's mayor-centric. Meaning he didn't have an economic development director. He did it all, and he jumped on an airplane and went to China, and, you know, that community had a different need. Their manufacturing had just bottomed out, and it was the only thing I believe Mayor Siebold did, and he did a darn good job at it. But as I looked around, you know, I looked at other communities that didn't maybe have the fortune that we've had with our highly skilled base. I looked at other communities that were struggling to get ahead. They had resources, and they used their resources to hire somebody to come in and take their resources and collaborate, leverage, and create a significant return on investment. And I've seen a lot of communities like that grow and just take off. And our community, I think, and just historically, we're very lucky to have our high-skilled manufacturing in this community. And it didn't seem like there was as much of a motivation to try and stay ahead. And I'll tell you, the world's changing. You know, manufacturing, for the most part, is not what communities are relying on anymore. The manufacturing has been declining for some time. We are fortunate with what we have, and we need to build on that. And there are communities that are fighting for what we have here, that every company that considers coming to our community is up and down US 30 and around Indiana looking for a home. And we need someone who understands the importance of our orthopedic-centric, very highly skilled manufacturing community, and we need somebody that will not only nurture that, but understand the importance of the regional side of it. We don't get these things done by ourselves, but at the end of the day, we've got to have vision, we've got to have infrastructure, and we've got to be ready to go when somebody comes a knocking. And that's what's happened the last 10 years. And that's why we're in the position we're in. But with the growth we've had, we've got to pull that out of the building and plan department. And to do that, we've looked at salaries, not just Fort Wayne and Mishawaka. We've looked around the state, and I'm convinced we're going to get what we pay for. I truly am.
You know, the KEDCO's a great organization. They have done a really great job under Alan Teho tutelage. But you know, the K in KEDCO stands for Kosciuszko. And we need the W. It stands for Warsaw. And if you can put the K and the W together, that's a concerted effort that everybody's going to benefit from. Retailers, manufacturing, the city, housing. It's, you know, tag team. Think of it that way. I think it's a marvelous idea.
Jennifer, you mentioned a couple of towns that you kind of looked at.
It's neither is not discussed.
Maybe something other than Fort Wayne, something other than Mishawaka?
Jeremy's laughing at me because I remember when I interviewed Jeremy when he first started working, and Mayor Tomer was in there, and I said, so when are you gonna get us the Frizzolis?
Oh,
I just passed him a note.
and he hasn't done it yet.
Said what? I didn't,
A Fazoli.
oh,
I think we've moved you up to Chick-fil-A by now.
Is it Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, forget the Frisoli rule.
So just roughly, this is from the AIM salary survey, which we received in 2020. Angola is about 68,000, Columbia City is 72,000, Columbus is 92,000 for community development director. Fishers are a little larger, of course. Frankfurt, Greenwood 88,000, Huntingburg 68,000, Jasper 71,000. Portage, 87,000, Shelbyville, 68,000, Westfield, 103,000.
So Diane, I'm sorry, so that is the maximum that we,
Yeah, I do,
maximum
yeah.
salary ordinance, right? So, comparing also, what I took into consideration is, what are we paying our utility manager? What are we paying our street superintendent?
That's what I
engineer,
was
as
looking
Mike
at
was talking
too,
about.
yeah.
This is a very comparable wage for this individual. And we need to attract and retain and just get that right person, so.
I would mention, I think, for a position like this, you're, this is sounding the wrong way, you're gonna get what you pay for. So, if we look at all the like communities, and we offer dollar for dollar what they're offering, let's just say they're gonna come to Warsaw. But if we can pay that a little bit extra, you know, a pill to swallow, because it is. I think that's really important to help keep us moving forward, not stagnate. Because economic development is, I think, more crucial now for Warsaw than ever. I think it needs to be somebody that knows how to integrate, like the mayor was saying with housing, it needs to go along with, you know, quality of life, retail, it's been all brought up here. And have that keen awareness of all those different things and the collaboration it's going to take to keep moving Warsaw forward. So I think that it's such an easy decision in my mind personally. Even though it is a large lump sum of the salary, it would be what, the third highest, you said, Diane. I think if we don't do that, we may put ourselves in a position to not get the correct person to truly get a return on our investment. That's what I think this is really all about. So that's just my 2 cents to this.
I'd like to address that third highest salary as well. Something that made me think about it was when Councilman Clondaris talked about our city engineer and how, you know, I don't know if I think he's the highest paid. Coming out of the manufacturing industry, being an engineer myself, we were expected to save 3 times our salary in order to be an okay engineer. Now, I don't know what James has saved us. I've heard many times that he saved us 10 times. You know, who knows for sure without putting those numbers together. But I guess I say that because we have to look at the positions, and here again, we're competing with other cities. We're competing with other entities to get the good talent. I think Warsaw is at a position right now where we've got some things moving, and I think we need to keep that momentum going. And that probably comes down to, as Josh alluded to, you know, if we had to pay a little bit more, then we got to pay a little bit more. If we want to keep moving. If we don't,
And competition is fierce.
yes, it is. And it's not like, you know, elected officials. It's not like, you know, Joe, I hate to say it, but on the open market, you're probably worth a lot more than what we're paying you. You're not going to get it though. But that's, you know, that's an elected position. The only thing that we have that we can compare it to is other elected positions. But from what I've seen, you know, to keep the balls juggling in the air that these type of people need to be doing, it takes some pretty sharp guys. And back to what a few others have said, we get what we pay for.
Does that help you?
Yeah, I appreciate this because we just got this today.
Yep.
You know, we didn't have time to think about it or really look at it, and I needed some help processing it because like I said, I just want to be a good fiscal manager, but I also don't want to smack any of our other department heads in the face that are doing an awesome job to get us where we're at. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are looking at needing more people without our current building and plan department and the things that they've done, and I don't want to in any way take away from that. It would, you know, if we could free them up where somebody could just work on this, I could see them just shooting the moon, because they're already doing it with everything else they have to do. So, yeah, I just needed help processing it because it came too quickly, and when I looked at it, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
You know, this is a big
Diane, I think
jump.
that's very fair, and I'm asking just for consideration. On first reading tonight, we'll have time to sit down and review it and talk about it, and
Yeah,
I appreciate, I mean, this discussion is important. I would just back up.
I think it's been
though.
good for all of us.
I think going back to our Baker Tilly organizational review, you know, this is critical.
oh, I totally
Something
agree
has
that
to
we need
happen.
the position, yeah.
Yep. So,
It's just,
Yeah, that would be the big thing, to review reorganization because of current realities.
right,
And then putting the players in and willing to, like you said, you pay a little now or you're gonna pay later. I just really think this is the right direction.
oh, yeah,
Good
definitely.
comments by everybody.
And we'd probably like to have somebody that's got a little seasoning. I mean,
Specialized knowledge.
yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
It's just
You
not
know, we don't want to
Right, you
be
don't
on the
need a
job
college
training.
graduate, yeah.
Yeah.
so with that, would someone care to consider ordinance 2020-1003?
I would
On
make that
first
motion,
reading.
Mayor.
Mike? And second, Josh? All right, any further discussion, comments? And again, thank you all for your comments tonight, all very well taken. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we'll consider this on second reading at our next meeting. Thank you very much. All right, let's move into ordinance 2020-1001. This is a public hearing. It's a confirming resolution for the Wishbone Medical establishment of the economic revitalization area. Jeremy, you carried us through the discussion at the last meeting. We're here again to consider it, confirm it tonight. Anything to add?
Just that this is the public hearing portion, so you'd open up to public hearing after, at your pleasure, if you were to approve the confirming resolution, then you could approve the subsequent SB1 that was in the packet as well.
So are there any questions, again, from last meeting? And this basically just states that this area is designated as an economic revitalization area, so we can consider that for tax abatement, which we'll see here in a minute.
This is the public hearing for this resolution,
That's
correct?
correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So before the council, is there any comments?
I just have a question, just an educational question. I need, if they grow and they need bigger space and they leave, does that economic development status stay there in that lot, that building?
I think the area remains an economic, just that footprint that we're designating.
Yeah, so there's two different.
So it's not Wishbone specific, it's
No.
building, property specific?
Exactly. It's address or legal description specific.
Thank you.
So I'll open up the public hearing portion of this meeting and ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak on behalf of the petition for the establishment of the economic revitalization area at 100 Capitol Drive. Anyone wishing to speak on behalf of the petition? All right, is there anyone wishing to speak against the petition? Jack, you coughed at both, so that means.
Sold to that lecture.
I'm just teasing. I was hoping someone would get up. All right. Again, anyone wishing to speak against the petition? All right. I'll close the public hearing portion of this comment and put it back to the council to consider confirming resolution 2020-1001 on second reading, final reading.
I appreciated them coming last time and explaining everything, and that was very helpful. And so I would make a motion that we approve 2020-1001 on second reading.
All right. Diane, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Councilman Gross. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, passed 5-0.
By the way, the Board of Works approved in a special claim on Friday the payment towards Wishbone's incentive, yes. And when Mr. Dieter came in to pick up the check, he was very, very appreciative of the council approving the whole loan in the first place. So I just wanted you guys to know that.
Should be.
We're excited to get going.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Lynn.
You're welcome.
All right, so then let's move on to the consideration, this vacant building resolution. This gives them a specific type of abatement for their building. And Jeremy, I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, so this is specific to a vacant building that's been vacant for more than a year. You're allowed to give a tax abatement, which is more or less retroactive on its value. And that tax abatement, and historically, we have approved a tax abatement based on what used to be the vacant building deduction. I have attached a sheet here for you. So year one would be 100%, and then the second and third year would be a 50% deduction for the taxes. And that would be on the current value of the building.
And then year 4, they just go to regular
And then they would
payment?
just go to tax.
Okay.
Yep. 3 years, yeah, because they're specifically getting an abatement on the whole building.
Got it.
Tax abatements, if you remember correctly, are granted on pre-development. So you spend money, you get money. But the state does have a vacant building deduction, which is the form that you're seeing today. that allows a retroactive abatement on a building that has sat vacant for more than a year, which is what we're approving, what they used to call dinosaur buildings. But it is capped at 3 years. And basically amounts to, if you look at over a 3-year period, it's a 200% deduction over a 3-year period.
How much, Jerry?
A 200%, so you got 100% the first year and then 50% years.
Jeremy, do the improvements figure into that?
The improvements do not, I mean, they can, but they would be under the 3-year. Now, if they so choose to, they could apply for a grander value on the 200,000 that they're putting into it. However, we base our tax abatements, if you remember correctly, on number of jobs and dollar amount spent. So typically, on something like 200,000, you would be in that 2 to 3 year range, because on the base, our 10 years based on over $1 million. $500,000 is 5-year range. I think it's $500,000 to $750,000 is 5 to 7 years, and then when you get down to 150 to 250 or 300,000, it's like 2 or 3 years. So they would get the abatement on the assessed value of the building, assuming they put the $200,000 in it. It would fall under the total assessment of that building during those 3 years. So whatever that value is, they would get abated.
Questions?
And is this something that comes back before us for the next 2 years?
You'll have
then, that
2
we see that they
CF1s,
have
yeah.
done it?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, 3 CF1s. Keep in mind, everything's a year out,
Right.
so everything they do now would be for
21.
21, yeah.
Okay.
So it would be 21, pay 22, so it wouldn't even be next year, it'd be pay 22.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Is there a motion to consider the approval of the abatement request?
I would move that we accept the abatement request.
Motion by Jack Wilhite, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Gross. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Let the minutes reflect. The request passed 5-0. All right, and then the final item on the agenda tonight, and again, I'll remind you, there will be no action required tonight. Basically, we just wanted to introduce the stormwater utility rate and charges adjustment that will be sought at the next meeting. But I did want to talk just a little bit about the rate adjustment. I know Ryan discussed the importance of the quantity and quality of water projects, that there just doesn't seem to be a shortage of those projects in a community like ours with challenging soils and high water tables and many lakes and streams and creeks. Stormwater is certainly a concern. In addition, we are bound as a MS4 community. Originally, I think it was an EPA amendment in the late 90s that qualified communities our size as being bound to these federal regulations that are enforced by IDEM. So we have requirements that we have to maintain, permitting requirements that are costly. We have to provide education, and we do enforcement on erosion control. And I don't want to steal Ryan's thunder. He's talked a little bit about these things. Obviously, the capital side of this, as we have issues, these projects aren't cheap. And we've looked at the backlog of projects that just continues to grow. So I do want to thank Mike and Jerry and Cindy, who were on the rate study committee. They sat through some meetings and were given a few options to consider by Baker Tilly, who is our consultant, our rate consultant, and will be with us at the next meeting to walk us through the ordinance But I just wanted to have just a little bit of an introduction, present this ordinance publicly. It's out there now. You can take a look at it. It basically increases, takes kind of a stepped approach rather than making a single jump. When this thing was first set up, the residential rate was $2.95. It continues at $2.95. And that probably was probably one of the lowest in the state when we established it. And now we're looking at getting that rate eventually up to $8 per household per month in January of 2025. So this will be a stepped increase. The base rate and the variable rate, or the rate for the ERU has been established in this rate ordinance, and again, we'll talk more detail at the next meeting. Pretty much the language and the way ratepayers are approached in this ordinance are the same as they have been. And again, we'll have more discussion about that. But again, just wanted to give you a little bit of a preview tonight of what we'll be doing. Again, we will consider it on first reading on October 19th. And then we'll hold our public hearing and final reading on November 2nd. And we've got a little time if we need it. But we will be joined by Baker Tilly to walk us through this ordinance. But you do now have a copy of it and have a chance to look through it. Mike, any general comments from your perspective on that committee?
Well, Ryan and James put in a lot of time crunching numbers and giving us, they fed us a lot of information. And it came down basically to two options. And we got our heads together and we chose the option that we thought was the fairest to our residents, which means we put just a little more, like 3% more of the onus on businesses. Part of the thinking there being that, we have a lot of people on fixed income who, have no way to increase their income, and we wanted to be fair to them. I think by laddering this in over the next 5 years, this is not going to hit anybody all at once. It's going to be gradual, and I think that's a fair way to do it. The other thing, and you hit on it, Mayor, is that these projects are they're really important to our community, and they're expensive. I mean, when you start talking $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 projects, they're big projects, and you can't just do a little bit of it. You got to do it all. So the utility is not self-sufficient, and I think we would like to get it to that point because we are pouring money into it to keep it afloat from other areas and those departments could use the money themselves. So, this is, again, planning for the future and trying to keep property values up so places don't get flooded out, people don't end up having water in their basements, streets. So it's a good thing, and it's something whose time has come. And I don't know what else to say, but to thank James Emmons and Ryan Workman for their hard work on this. And we move forward.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate your work with Jerry and Cindy on this and your guidance through this. This is ultimately a decision the council will make, and you've spent a lot of time on it. You've thought a lot about it. Again, this is one of those things that it's it's just, we have to do it.
Yeah.
The $2.95 rate that we have right now doesn't get us much. It probably gets us administratively to comply with the MS4 requirements and maybe a little extra, but not much, and that leaves very little for projects. We've utilized our Cumulative Capital Development Fund throughout the years, primarily for these stormwater projects, and will continue to do so, but again, we're limited in that respect, and I think the stormwater utility has to be able to stand on its own. And again, as Ryan mentioned tonight, street department and wastewater utility are doing using a lot of their resources to get a lot of these things done. So,
You know, if I might add, Mayor, the one thing that we all three came away with in coming up with this plan and laddering in these rate increases, we all kind of looked at each other and said, this is what we need to be doing with wastewater. You know, we ran into a buzzsaw, what was it, 2 years ago? We hadn't raised our rates for 10 years, and then you got to make a big increase. So it's maybe next year, we need to talk about that.
well, the important thing is that these will be phased in.
Yeah.
And it was actually almost 18 years there hadn't been a raise in the wastewater rate.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was more than 10.
Oh, gosh, yeah, you just get in trouble when you do that.
So again, we'll be back next month unless there's other questions.
I don't want to, I know you said details later, but on page 3, the base rate, that's for every residential, private, and public entity. And then the variable rates, the ERU,
Yes,
which is 3,500 square feet, that's a unit.
yes.
And that, so if I have 2 of them, I'm gonna pay 2.
No.
How's that work?
So an ERU, they did, I remember when we went through this,
Right.
Ryan, you can help me, they picked a bunch of different residences, they measured the area, they averaged them, and every resident is treated equally. So every resident pays the same, they pay a base, and they pay the equivalent of 1 ERU.
1 ERU.
So let's just say that ERU's 5,000 square feet. So if you've got 10,000 square feet of residential, you pay 5,000. If you've got 1,000, you pay 5,000. That amount changes, it can be variable. Will they go back and recalculate that for this rate ordinance?
No, so the equivalent residential unit is gonna remain the same, 3,500.
3,500, okay. So then that's the unit that's used for commercial. The 3,500 is 1 ERU. So if you got 7,000 commercial, you'll pay 1 base rate and then 2 ERUs.
That's right.
But from a residential standpoint, all residences are created equal when it comes to this.
That's what I remembered, it was set so the residents would pay,
Yeah.
instead, nobody would go over the 3,500 or whatever it was, but then that would be influencing
Yeah,
bigger properties,
yeah.
private and public.
This is the most equitable structure when it comes to stormwater rates, because it's correlated with impervious surface, which is what gives you the volume rate of stormwater impacting our infrastructure.
So how is,
I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure I knew that before
Yep.
we come into the next meeting, because I looked at that chart on page 3. Thank you.
Ryan, how is the impervious surface rate measured for, I know it's their roof and their, like, parking lots, is it anything else?
I mean, it's predominantly concerned anything that does not infiltrate. So, you could even, I mean, currently right now, you could have the unimproved real estate portion, even if there's a structure on it, it's then considered residential. So like a telephone pole or even a driveway, even ground drive, just anything that is impervious, where there's not that natural infiltration, it's going to be considered.
Okay, so like for business, if they chose to install a parking lot that was a pervious surface, they wouldn't get charged for that surface
currently in our language, we would still consider it. So it is porous, it is pervious, but with it being graded, with it being actually considered still asphalt, no. However, there is options in the future for us to incorporate potentially a credit system for businesses, larger businesses that do that, and with offset some costs, would be able to capture some of those credits.
I was thinking about what we could do to start encouraging some green infrastructure like that, thinking about our project over at Pike Lake, and the kids still love to see us pour the water on that and just see it, you know, go right through rather than rolling off onto the sidewalk. And
Yeah, so I guess to make a final statement on that point is one of the largest hurdles that we have to create that credit manual or opportunity for businesses is creating stormwater technical standards. This is another one of those programmatic things that we need to get, or those additional administrative costs that stormwater utility needs to do. So just makes this change so important.
okay.
All right. So, any other comments? We'll, again, look forward to a formal discussion at the next meeting. Take a chance to look at that. If you have questions, you can contact Ryan, you can contact myself. If it's something that we can't answer, we'll get a hold of Baker Tilly. If there's questions on the engineering side of it, I'm sure James will be very helpful with that. So, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
The next meeting is fall break for schools. I know my wife's office is closing because she's got gals that have kids in school, so I'll be gone. I don't know about Jeff. I don't know about anybody else.
Our next scheduled meeting is the 19th.
19th, yep.
Yeah, fall break will be done on the 21st, so it is that week, but the school won't be dismissed till Wednesday.
So I will not be at the next meeting.
If any of you have other concerns, and it looks like we're going to run into an issue, then we certainly could reschedule it, but I think for the time being, we'll leave it as the 19th. Again, I appreciate, and that was probably good foresight to get those other things passed tonight so that that's not requisite. All right. Any other comments? Visitors' comments? Anything else to be brought to the council? How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right,
In Jerry's honor.
thank you. I think we got something to sign.
Here's got a lot of stuff to sign. This is, you'll have to say that was.
Yes.
Okay. Who was calling them? Which phone? Because I don't think we gave that number out to anybody.
I don't know, I think it was good discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.